Welcome to the pre-taping of our history tape number 431 as we bring you the history of the city of Grand Prairie and some of the people that have made that history, and maybe some of them are continuing to make history this very day. We're very honored for during our August we will be featuring this very special young man that has meant a very great deal to the city of Grand Prairie, even though he is not a local resident. And we're honored today to have His Honor, Roy Orr, former County Commissioner, District 4 of Dallas County, on the dais with us today. Welcome, Mr. Orr, sir.
Pleased to be here, Miss Ruthie.
Wonderful. We're delighted to have a young man on the dais today that his name is very well known in Grand Prairie for the many things you have done, and because for many, many years now, people going off of Carrier Parkway north will take a right on Roy Orr Boulevard, and a lot of people will say now, I wonder about Roy Orr. I haven't seen him in a long time, and other people will say, who is Roy Orr? And so for that reason, we thought it would be appropriate today that we would bring His Majesty on the dais today, and we'd like to do a mini history of Roy before we get into some of the other things that we'd like to talk about in your life. So if you would look out into your camera and tell us about the real Roy Orr, where you were born, the name of your parents, and if you had brothers or sisters, and do a little bit of name dropping, please.
All right, my mother and father was Willis and Audrey Mae Orrs. My mother was a Hill, which is an old-time name in DeSoto. And actually my grandmother and granddaddy, named Eldred Hill, raised me in DeSoto, and I was born in DeSoto, and I still live within a mile where I was born, literally. I married a young lady by the name of Janice Gallagher, and in fact we lived up over her mother and daddy's old store at the corner of Hampton and Beltline Road when we first got married in 1952, and I can't believe I've been married 49 years, July the 3rd, and my roots are pretty deep there, and I've always stayed there. And some people ask me, have you lived in DeSoto all your life? And I say, not yet. And I have one brother named Fred Orr. He was in the Texas legislature before I got particularly involved, and no sisters. And he still lives in the area. He lives out around Addison. And went to high school in Lancaster, because back in those days, DeSoto, we went through the 8th grade and did not have a high school in DeSoto. And from that, I went into the insurance business and had a local agency in DeSoto for about 35 years. And then I was elected on the school board and mayor, and I was chairman of the Democratic Party back in the days. We had two parties within the party.
And that was a statewide office that you held in the Democratic Party, was it not?
Yes, from 70 to 72. And then from there I went to county commissioner. I had the privilege of meeting a lot of people, and I was elected president of the National Association of Counties in about 1980, and the only Texan to ever hold that office. However, this coming year, Ken Mayfield, who is the incumbent county commissioner, will be president of NACO, and that'll be the first time in history that the same two people from the same district in the same county would be president of NACO, and only the second Texan ever. So I feel very, very proud about those accomplishments, and I feel like that, talk about hometowns, that Grand Prairie was kind of my second hometown, because when I was commissioner I probably could have been accused, and maybe they could even have proven it, that I spent a lot of time in Grand Prairie because I had a lot of great friends such as Ruthie Jackson and Cliff Johnson, who was the city manager, and Bill Bowles, who was the mayor. And those kind of people made my life easier, and I always felt like that I wasn't there to tell them what to do. I was there to say, how can I assist you? And I think we got along very well with that kind of philosophy.
That's a mini thing, but now let's get back to DeSoto. When you started to school at elementary school, grade 1 through the 8th, before you went to Lancaster to high school, were there favorite teachers or people that really encouraged Roy, other than his grandparents that really were his motivating factor, but were there others that you'd like to remember in this history tape?
A lady by the name of Miss Ruby Young. She was an old maid school teacher. She taught me in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And I can remember very well, and I've said on many occasions, she ruled the world with a 12-inch ruler.
Yes.
And her words were gospel, and I don't ever remember many people disobeying what Miss Ruby Young would say. And I can remember you was going to learn your phonics. I can still see those flashcards up there that she was doing for you. You was going to learn back in those days the 48 states and capitals. And I think because of her, I could probably name you all 50 states and capitals today. And so she had a tremendous impact on me. And I can remember that back in those days, DeSoto did not have a post office. And we got our mail through Route 1, Cedar Hill, Texas. And she had a brother that was in World War II. And I can remember very well that she would tell you, you better behave while I'm going to the mailbox, which was probably 50 yards away. And I had the privilege of doing her funeral about 5 or 6 years ago. And I remember very well how great she was. And she was a dedicated teacher. And I think she taught in the DeSoto School, the only place she ever taught. And she taught there for about 40, 50 years and never missed a day.
That was something.
And oh, I might add, I had the privilege while I was president of the school board, and we named a school named Ruby Young School.
How wonderful. And on to Lancaster, which is a far piece to the east and a little bit south. And tell me about Lancaster and the high school there. How did you fit in, coming in from the country of DeSoto into the big town of Lancaster, which had railroads and all this good stuff?
Well, it went very well, but there was only 6 of us that went from the 8th grade to DeSoto.
How'd you get there?
On a bus, and the bus stop made one stop right in the middle of town.
I see.
And if you lived 2 miles from there, you walked the 2 miles, and if you lived within a block, you walked the block.
I see.
And it didn't pick you up door to door, and it was at the corner again of Beltline and Hampton Road. And I remember a lady that had a great impact on my life was a lady by the name of Elsie Robertson, who was the principal at that time. And again, her word was gospel, and when she told you something, you did it. And it wasn't any ifs and ands and buts about it. And I've often said, children today need to have the respect and that sort of thing of their teachers that I think that most of us back in my era certainly had.
What was your favorite subject in high school, and what did you do after high school?
My favorite subject in high school was probably history, especially Texas history.
Yes.
And I guess I loved geography, but I remember the others back in those days, you had to have 4 years of English. I didn't say I necessarily liked it, but I had great teachers like Winnie Shaw that didn't mind staying after school with you if she thought you was not doing as well as you should, and teach you some fundamentals. And then after that, I had enlisted in the Air Force Reserve at Hensley Field right here in Grand Prairie, Texas, and we got activated on May the 1st, 1950, which I didn't think would happen. And most of the people in that outfit was old World War II veterans, and here I was a young 19 or 20-year-old
Yes.
young man. They took me under their wing, and I think I did pretty well. And after the Korean War was over, I came back and I went to work for an insurance company, and then I took night courses at what we called back in those days Dallas College of SMU.
Yes. And in the meantime, have you met Janice yet?
I've never known when I didn't know Janice.
All right. You went to school with her from the word go then?
Never knew when.
All right. Okay.
Didn't know her or her parents.
That's wonderful. A long-time childhood sweetheart, and still a sweetheart. And did you say 49 years?
49 years. Got married July the 3rd, 1952.
Okay, and so we're going to celebrate the 50th next year, right?
That's what my children tell me.
Yes.
They're making any plans. I said, I'm not making any plans.
Not making any plans. Okay. And you and Janice, from your marriage, do you have children?
Got 3 daughters and a son, all
right,
grown.
let's name them all, and some of the grandkids if you
We
can.
got Valerie Sue, which is our oldest, and her husband, by the way, is a preacher at the Plymouth Park Church of Christ in Irving, Texas.
And what is his name?
His name is Steve Barrett.
All right.
Graduate Abilene Christian.
All right.
Got Roxy. She was one of our children that said that when she graduated from high school, she'd never see us again. She lived next door to us for about 18 years, and we moved 2 years ago, and she still lives next door to us.
Roxy follows, doesn't she?
And then and her husband is Brent Yeldell.
Yes.
And then I got Leanne, who married a local young man by the name of Ronnie Reeves. And they have 2 children. Matter of fact, all our daughters have 2 children, and they're all boys. And then I got a son, 33, and he's been married about 2 years, and he announced to me the other day that he and his wife's going to have our first little girl about December the 7th.
Yes. And his name?
Is John Timothy R.
And his wife?
Her name is Ginger.
Ginger. Okay. I think we've gotten all of at least the children and their spouses. I'm not going to ask you to name all the grandkids, but is there a favorite grandkid out of all of them that just hangs on to Roy Orr everywhere
Ruthie,
you go?
you told me a long time ago. I'm not going to commit to that. So they're all very lovely children, very obedient, and I think they love their granddaddy.
All right. Now you do have a picture here of the 2 latest great grandchildren. Could you hold that up? And I think that if you'll hold it right under your chin, they will at least be shown. Just keep digging. It's right on down the line there.
Hold it here in front.
Let's a little higher. See in the monitor up there? You need to pull it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Now we got it. That is good. Now we've got those kids on there. And do you know the name of those 2 great-grandchildren? Or is that too much to ask?
Oh, no. One of them is named Cade, and the other is named Jackson.
That's good. All right. You stayed right in the line there, didn't you? Okay. And in the insurance company now, and we've gotten you married, and we have you with a family. You've always lived in DeSoto.
Yes.
Okay. You've done lots of things as well as the insurance company. Tell me some of the things that you peeled off into, other than being the president of a couple of banks and other things like that.
Well, back in the early 60s, we was a crossroad town of about 1,000 people. And when I went in business, I decided to look around and see what does a town need to grow. And one of the first things we thought about was a financial institution. And so we was fortunate enough to put people together that had a common interest. And we organized a community bank, called it the DeSoto State Bank. And since that time, we've organized 2 or 3 others in various areas. Mm-hmm. And then, like anything else, when you're in a small town, people look at you, and you get to looking around. And I ran for school board one time in the middle 60s. And Ruthie, I'm one of those proponents that says that 1 vote does count. And as a matter of fact, I won the first election to the DeSoto Independent School District by 1 vote.
Oh, that is great.
100 to 99. I can remember very, very well. And so when people
landslide, what?
That's right. When people tell me 1 vote doesn't count, I say it does.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was elected mayor, and one of the things that I'm proud of there is the fact that I went back and read the minutes of people that was elected mayor, and each year they'd say, we have a water problem. And I was determined, because we operate off of artesian wells.
Yes.
I was determined that I didn't want to leave there and somebody said, you still got a water problem. So we looked around, to make a long story short. I was able to go to the Water Development Board in Austin and borrow a little bit of money and tie it on to the city of Dallas and run transmission lines. And
yes.
So consequently, that kind of solved our water problem, knowing the water rights that the city of Dallas has. And so those are the kind of things that you're very, very proud of, to see that you actually accomplished something. And even today, from being county commissioner or whatever, you look back and see some of the things that you might have had a little hand in that might have happened, but they might not have happened if you hadn't had a hand. And I've always said that I didn't own the office. I was just there renting it, so to speak, and by the grace of God and my constituents, and that's what I tried to do.
And you do go to church?
I go to for many, many years it's called the DeSoto Church of Christ, but now it's called Rolling Hills, because we merged about 5 years ago with Trinity Oaks, which is up in the southern part of Dallas County. And I still go there, and I'm not taking much inventory, but my mother-in-law, till she died about 6 months ago, was probably the oldest continuous member, and I probably am today, so I'm getting dated again, Ruthie, on various things.
And are you still an elder of that congregation?
No, I'm not an elder anymore, because I decided, like a lot of other things, that you sometimes pass it around, and still very active, and I've tried to be not only there, but in the city and other places as kind of a senior citizen.
Local politics, you've been school board and mayor and other things in your city. What brought you to Dallas County Commission?
Well, I was mayor at the time of DeSoto, and Judge Lou Sterrett called me one day. We had a death. but from a commissioner by the name of Denver Seal. And I'd never been a bosom buddy of Judge Sterrett, but he called me one day and wanted to know if I'd come to see him. And I went to see him, and he said, I'd like to appoint you county commissioner. And it kind of shocked me, to be honest, because I had a brother that was in the legislature at the time. And so I finally said, I'll serve for the unexpired term. Well, that unexpired term ran to 12 years, and I'll always be grateful to Judge Sterrett. But again, I looked around, and I'm one of those kind of guys that if I'm going to be involved, I want to be totally involved. And I got to looking around that NACO, the National Association of County Officials, was kind of controlled by what I would call the Eastern establishment. Yeah. And so I decided to challenge them, and guess what? I was able to put some people together, a coalition together, and we kind of wrestled the leadership from the Eastern and brought it a little bit up to the Southwest.
Brought it to Texas. How many judges did you serve under, beginning with Sterrett and down the line? Could you name them?
Judge Sterrett, John Whittington, and Gary Weber. And it's still one of the commissioners on the Commissioners Court today that was there when I was there, and that's Jim Jackson.
Jim Jackson, and we honored him last year, but we honored you this very year at the Dallas County Commissioners Court when we were privileged to be there, and you received our very first Silver Doorknob Award, an award that was created especially for you because you have opened doors for so many people into so many different arenas that we felt that you were worthy of this, and the court was in agreement and let us make that presentation on behalf of the Keep Dallas County Beautiful Commission and the other people that were in attendance at that day. And
which I'll always be grateful, because I've told many people, you should be the one that got the Golden Award.
That'll be next, that'll be next. Now, let's get back to serving Grand Prairie, Texas. As county commissioners, you built the bridge over the Trinity River at Roy Orr. And when we made an end run to the very wonderful city council that was led by Ann Gresham at that time, and mentioned your name, just name dropped, and said, we really would like to do something for Roy Orr. And guess what the council did? They named that wonderful roadway that's in the northwest part of Grand Prairie, Texas, the Roy Orr Boulevard. And we even have plantings in it now, and we're doing all sorts of things to that roadway. And have you ever had any other roads named for you? I know they've named something for you in DeSoto, and we're going to talk about that in a minute.
No other roads, and again, those are the kind of honors that come to you that you're not expecting. And again, I think when you do a good job, people recognize that, and so consequently, one of the greatest honors I've ever had is when they did name the Roy Orr Boulevard out in the northwest part of the city, and when it wasn't even a street there, road there, continuation, and when
it was the old county line road, wasn't it?
Old county line road, but it wasn't a bridge going across the Trinity.
That's right.
And I don't know what the bridge would cost today, but I can remember very well how we had to really try to save our pennies because that wasn't a countywide project, as you know. That came out of the funds of District 4, and then when you look at I've even forgotten, Ruth, the name of the street, but the street that goes to the Wax Museum.
Yes, Safari.
It was not a street there, and I can remember, and I don't remember today how many thousands of yards of dirt we hauled in there, but that was, I hope, a great asset to the city of Grand Prairie, opening up that north end. And I can remember very well when we come along with the CETA program. That's a Comprehensive Employment Training Act, and where I was able to get a grant, and we hired 2 people for the Chamber of Commerce for the city of Grand Prairie to work for them, because that was a nail. They first said it had to be government employees, but I convinced the powers to be that the chamber was kind of a semi-government organization. So when you look back on those kinds of things, and you was able to help people that needs help, and again, that's why that government exists, and I'm very, very proud, Ruthie, that I've served in several elected positions.
It was wonderful that we named the boulevard for you. We gave you one of those street signs so you could take it back over to DeSoto and put it up at the entrance to your home. What happened to your street sign?
It's there, and you know, I had to borrow one of these standards from a real estate person to get it on, but I got it, and it's got the Grand Prairie emblem on it, and I'm very, very proud of that, and I should have brought a picture of that. And,
well, the first one was Purloin's, and we had Georgia and Dan Clemson came over to one of your parties, and so we sent you, and we couldn't go at that time. I think we were in the hospital, but we sent that by that wonderful courier that we have, Dan and Georgia Clemson, and they brought you a replica of the one that someone had stolen from your place. And I wonder what happened to that other Roy Orr Boulevard
I don't
sign.
know, but they can't hide it, can they?
They can't hide it.
And so, you know, again, you're very, very, very grateful for those kinds of things. And again, my own city gave me, and you were kind enough to come and participate. A year ago, June the 2nd, they named the Roy Orr Trail, which is a long 10-mile creek. And when it's completely finished, it'll be about 26 miles long. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure when I walk on it. I guess I got too old to jog, but I walk at a pretty fast pace. And you pass somebody and say, "Oh, you're Roy Orr." And I said, "Yes," and they stand and talk to you for a minute. So those are the kind of things that I hope that, I don't guess anybody's ever completely deserving, but I'm proud that people in DeSoto recognize that, because sometimes, as you well know, in your hometown where you've been within a 2-mile radius or a 5-mile radius, everybody knows you, so they know your weaknesses and your strengths. And so I hope my strengths have outweighed my weaknesses on many occasions.
And on the 10-mile creek, 26 miles of that through your city, will that connect on into Dallas or Wilmer or Lancaster and go back and connect into Duncanville? Was 10-Mile Creek going to be developed extensively?
It's going to be developed extensively, and I know that the city of DeSoto has appropriated more money to finish theirs, but I do not know exactly what Duncanville or Lancaster or Cedar Hill has done.
We're going to have to talk with them about beautification, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Of all of the jobs that you have had, whether it be county commissioner or an elected official or being the chairman of the Democratic Party for the state, what was the most exciting experience that you've had in your political career? I'll put it that way.
Probably, Ruthie, you know, I've had a lot of great experiences with a lot of people, but being able to have one-on-one visits with people like President Ronald Reagan, and he offered me the regional administrative job for the Department of Labor, and I visited that very much, and I was very honored. And I don't care who you are, when you're called by the President of the United States, your adrenaline gets to going.
Yes.
And I said yes, but I decided I could not become a bureaucrat. And being able to go to the White House and be a dinner guest where it's only 2 or 3 other people than you with the President of the United States.
Yeah.
And then I had a great honor when Jimmy Carter was president. He invited me, and I spent the night at the White House one time. And so those are great experiences. But as I tell people, that and $1.50 will buy you a cup of coffee some places. But you look back on those, and those are great experiences. And to this day, about once a year, Jimmy Carter just call me and say, "How you doing?" And you appreciate that.
Yes. Now, you've spoken at the national level, and of course you had many inroads here in the state of Texas. How about the state governors of Texas that you have been associated with?
Well, probably my favorite is naturally John Connally, but the guy I had the closest relationship with was probably Preston Smith, because he was governor when I was state chairman. And not too long ago, he called me, and I guess he just wanted to ride downtown, because he called me and wanted to know if I'd meet him at Love Field.
Yes.
And I carried him to Love Field, and he went to some office, and we stayed about 30 minutes, and I carried him back to Love Field, and he got on the plane and went back to Lubbock. And he asked me a question, Ruthie, that was kind of interesting. He said, "What was the last year that I was governor?" And I had to scratch my brain, but I think it was 71, 72.
Yeah.
He said, "How much was my state budget?" And I didn't remember. He said it was $3 billion on a biennium. And he said, "How much is it today?"
Oh.
And I said, "I can't answer you that," but he reminded me it was about $80 billion.
Yes.
And he asked me the question, are we any better off today than we were when I was governor? And that's a tough question, so that's a question politicians need to ask themselves. And I guess one of the things I'm the most proud of, now some people would condemn me for it, is I served as mayor, served on the school board, served on as county commissioner, people that had the power to raise taxes or lower taxes. And I never voted in all of those endeavors for a tax increase, because I feel like you need to manage your business manage the government like you do your business.
Okay, that is wonderful. All right, now if you were talking to the young folks that might be watching our show, and that maybe someday they will research these history tapes that we have, I'd like for you to look out into your camera and just speak to the young people about their role and what you really think that they should do.
First thing, I'd encourage you to participate, be active, because I never worry what will happen to America, Grand Prairie, Texas, or Texas, if I knew that 90% of the people would vote. But when you have elections, whether it be local or national or state, and just a very small percentage of people vote, it really bothers me what might happen. For instance, when only 7 or 8% of the people vote, that means 4% plus one vote is really governing what we're going to do. So I would encourage you to be involved, be good leaders, be good listeners, do what you say you do, and just be good. And the thing we're lacking today is parental authority. Obey the authorities. That don't mean that you don't have your own ideas, but I would say be involved, and be involved for a good cause.
That sounds like a wonderful philosophy of life, and I know that you and your family, and we need to dig out a picture of you and Janice in there, please. I think there's one.
There's one with one of our great-grandchildren. I don't know which one
All
it is
now,
right now.
Louis has run all the way from the control room out to this camera, so he's getting a good picture of that. Now, Janice looks a little bit prouder than you do, but you're getting to hold the baby. And which one is this one?
This is the youngest one. This is a young man by the name of Brandon Yeldale.
Yes.
And he moved recently to Wimberley, Texas, and he's in the garbage business. He works for one of the waste companies, and he calls on cities and counties and so forth.
Well, we want to take this opportunity to thank you for lending your name in Grand Prairie, Texas, to the Roy Orr Boulevard. We want to thank you for the many acts of kindness, as well as legislative things that you have caused to come about for the city of Grand Prairie. And if I had thought about it today, I'd have probably brought you the Gold Doorknob Award to present on this show, because you really deserve one. And I want to thank you, Roy Orr, for being a special friend.
Do I have another second?
1 second.
I got a second. I would be really remiss if I didn't say that Ruthie Jackson is the can-do lady, and Grand Prairie is a much better place because Ruthie Jackson exists.
Thank you very much for being here. You're precious.
And you're precious.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.